All right. Welcome everyone. Our social impactful mentorship, two sides of the story, is about how to get involved with the community, how, what was our story, how I got into community, and how Eldert, my friend, my mentor, helped me with this. But of course, first of all, we want to introduce ourselves. My name is Olena Borzenko. I'm working with Spirit Germany, and you can find me on Twitter, of course. Originally, I'm from Ukraine, but currently I'm living in Germany, in Berlin.
Yeah, and so I'm actually, I see that I need to open my slides still with the new company. I was just thinking about it as I stood here, like, I think I might have forgotten that. So I'm Eldert Grootenboer. I don't work for Motion 10 anymore. I work for Microsoft these days. So I actually moved to Microsoft in February. So also I'm no longer an MVP, because once you get the blue badge, you have to give back the MVP badge.
It's the last time that you can say it. You can brag about it.
Yeah, so I come from the Netherlands, but as I joined Microsoft, I actually moved to Vancouver in February as well. So I'm now living in Vancouver and working from there.
Yeah, just because you wanted also to have two emojis on the slide.
Yeah, that's the only reason I did it.
All right, so how does it start? Starting point was a Christmas party. Of course, it was virtual due to COVID, and everything was virtual. So we were doing what we can. We were drinking online. We were socializing in any possible way. And it was Dylan's party, I guess, Christmas party, yeah, where I met Eldert and we became friends. And for me, it was a great opportunity to see how, not just, of course, not opportunity, but I was observing how he is working every day, how he is getting involved in the community, how he is speaking. And for me, it was a starting point to start thinking about what do I want to do? Maybe I want to try to speak as well. That was the beginning when I reached to Eldert first time asking questions about, can you tell me a bit more? How's it happening? How do you prepare sessions? I was just curious back then. So I had no idea that he will take it seriously, and I will have no other choice but to move forward. So for me, it was understanding if I really wanted, by also seeing an example, have an example of how it's happening in the real life.
And so at that point, we started talking about, okay, so how does one get involved in the community? Because the community is very big, like there's many things you can do. Like, of course, we talked about speaking, but you can also do blogging. Actually, yeah. So yeah, you can. So of course, you can do speaking. That's what we talk about a lot. Like in the call that we were in, like there's a lot of speakers, and this was like a call that happened basically weekly. Like we've all been there. You're sitting at home every Friday, so we just had talks, and there's a lot of speakers there. So we started talking, okay, like what does it take to get involved in speaking? But also, for example, what about blogging? Because if you're not a natural speaker, you might not want to get on stage. So we're also talking about some different options, like blogging. You can start writing, like you can write books, you can write articles, you can do video recordings. Like once again, this was back when video recordings were a very hot thing during COVID. Like everyone was sitting at home, no one was going out, so a lot of people actually started recording videos. So these are all different options if you want to get involved with the community yourself. So maybe people here are also looking like, hey, I want to get a bit more involved in the community. I also want to start speaking or something else. Like these are some of the different options that you have. And so Olena and me were basically talking about, okay, so what does it take to do these kind of things?
There's also
code contributions, yeah. And so, as we were talking, basically Olena's face went a bit like this.
Yeah. For me, what I saw is that sometimes, occasionally, Eldert just like speaking, some online events and whatever, it seems to be so easy. When he started explaining me how many options and what I have to do, I was like, oh, Jesus, this is like, this is another 8-hour work day, like really to understand it all. So yeah, for me it was stepping into unknown. I had no idea. Okay, I had no idea what should I do and where can I start. Like, okay, Eldert, explain me all the possible options, all the options what I can do. And I just had more questions afterwards. Like, okay, I know that I can speak, write, make video, whatever. How can I get the content? Where can I get the ideas? Is it ideas from my working experience, or is it something that I'm doing like just in my free time? And there was like 1,000 more questions. I had no answer, and that was.
So we started talking about those different questions, and like first of all, I think one of the major points that we also talk about here today is share your story. Don't try to think like that you need to share someone else's story, basically. Like you have your own experiences. This might be something that happened on a project. It might be something that you ran into with a code issue. It might be something that you were looking to find an answer to, but didn't find anything and then find it out on your own. Like there's different options, but it's really about telling your own story. And you start by describing it shortly. Like just don't try to immediately go like for the complete workshop, but just start small. And then you start looking into, okay, maybe there's some online events, maybe some meetups that I can start at. And all of the questions, of course, like 1,000 questions, 1,000 answers. Well, maybe not all of them were answered, but we definitely talked a lot about these.
Not all of them were answered. Not all of them were answered, but that was also a signal for both of us that there is definitely some work has to be done. For Eldert, it was a great opportunity to explain his experience, how he was starting, how he got to the point where he is. For me, it was also the great learning experience from someone with a lot of sessions behind the back, and like how can I learn from someone? So why not? Why, after all, why not to try and create a session and have a first online talk back then, right?
And this is basically what we just said, like, okay, let's just try it. Like, worst case, you don't like it, or if something goes wrong, you will learn from it. But it's really just taking that first step, like, okay, let's just try this.
Yeah, it didn't become clear for me after he answered on all my questions, like how to do and what to do. So we were like, okay, let's just try. Let's just try and see how it's going to be. So
then we came to the point where you were like, okay, let's do this. I want to become a speaker. Like, okay, let's just go ahead and do this.
Yeah, Eldert asked me a question. Just try to understand, what do you like when you see someone's session? So for me, it was, okay, I had an example back then. I remember that I bumped into Dylan Vity's talk, The Art of Code, on YouTube. And I was like, yeah, I like this talk. It looks amazing. And Eldert told me, try to analyze, why do you like this? I liked because there was a story. I liked because there was something special, something unique. It was not just a documentation from the Microsoft or some article from Google or whatever, just retold. No, it was a unique thing told from Dylan, like to shared with the audience. And for me, it was understanding that I have to find a session format that, first of all, is comfortable for me, and I have to tell my story. So whatever it is it a story about failure? If it's a story about success, maybe it's a story about something interesting, but it has to come from me, and it has to be my own thing.
And also important here is, like, of course, definitely do look at other people. Like, look at other people's sessions, look at what you find interesting about them. But indeed, find your own format, like do something that you feel comfortable with. You don't have to be like Dylan, like the rock star on stage. You don't have to be a Scott Hanselman. You don't have to be a Dylan or David Whitney. Like there's so many people that have their own unique style. And of course, like definitely look at them, look at what you like, but create your own style. That's the most important part, because if you don't have your own style, if you're trying to be someone else on stage, you're never going to be comfortable and you won't enjoy your talks.
So that was the moment when we were first steps of setting up the contract. So how to pick a topic. For me, it was, I have to be passionate about it. And that said, you would not be able to deliver a nice talk, even just a good talk or like, well, a fine talk, if you would not be at least a tiny bit passionate about it. It has to be something you were doing, you were like really emotional, you like really wanted to share, like, no, listen to me, I have to tell you about it. I have to tell you all about it. And for me, it was, I had back then topic about like this. It was Azure Cosmos DB, it was project, we were doing some architecture. But still, I was kind of struggling and a bit like anxious, like, but where do I start? How can I make it? I couldn't start. You know, everyone I think in life had this point when like, how to make this first step? It was, I'm pretty sure. And David Whitney, thanks to you, I managed to do this first step after this phrase that it doesn't have to be groundbreaking or difficult or important. Most things are not. So for me, it was somehow this breaking point when I was like, yeah, really, I don't have to deliver the best whatever talk. I just have to start somewhere. I just have to do what I like and what I feel, and just grow with it.
Yeah. So basically, if you want to start it yourself, like just find something that you experience. Like I said, might be a project, might be something that you ran into. But don't try to just go to documentation, put that into slides, and then start talking about that, because anyone can just Google this. It's really about your experiences, what you went through.
Yeah, and then there was coming the even the harder part. So.
Yes. So then we came to, okay, so we now know that you want to start talking. We came to, okay, I actually have a subject, but now I need to actually write something down, because I have to submit this to conferences, to meetups. So how do we actually write an abstract, and how do we choose a title for this? And for anyone that has ever tried to start with this knows like this is very hard, because an abstract should be like small enough that you actually give some meaning, but also not give everything away. So when you write an abstract, basically there's a couple of different things that you need to watch for. So first of all, give enough details about your session. You probably saw our abstract today on the website, you read it. And what you'll see is that we tell enough details that we hope at least that you can understand what are we going to talk about, what will we take away from this session. But we don't, we're not going to put basically our whole talk in that abstract, because it's just like a teaser, like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. You may have to make it attractive, both with organizers and attendees. Of course, the organizers need to know, okay, this is something that fits in our schedule. This is something that our attendees might like. I'm an organizer of conference myself, so I know how hard it is if you have like 500, 600, 1,000 sessions, and you have to pick like 50 out of those. You really have to have a good abstract to jump out and make sure that organizers notice your abstract and are like, okay, this is something that we might like.
Easy to say, right?
It's easy to say, not that hard to do. But also, of course, with attendees, like you are here today because you thought, hey, this looks interesting. This looks like something that I might learn something from, that I get something out of. So also with attendees, you may need to make sure that they get enough out of the abstract. So if you want to start writing an abstract yourself, Dylan actually wrote a really good blog post, how not to respond to a CFP. And this goes into details like, okay, don't do one-liner, don't do like a complete novel in there, but also other things like what words should you or should you not use. Don't use all the buzzwords in your abstract, things like that. So a really good blog post to start reading that. And also Martin Twaits also wrote the blog post from 1,000 submission to 100 slots. And this also goes into details like, okay, what does a conference organizer look for in an abstract? So these two, if you want to start writing this for your own, I would definitely say go through these, because they give a lot of good tips and help you write better abstract for yourself.
Yeah, these two articles, that was something I was reading, besides, of course, reading a lot of abstracts on my own, just going through all the conferences I've seen, just reading and trying to understand if there's any not like algorithm, but come on, like we are technical people. Like, of course, I was looking for some kind of algorithm there. And I found it for myself. Like, I cannot say that it will work perfectly in 100% cases, but for me, it was something that made sense and helped me to move forward. So for me, I found that there's like kind of three parts when you create an abstract. So what is exactly your problem? So if you have a cat, okay, I'm jealous, but we all know how hard it is to teach them to not to jump on a dining table. So how can we solve the problem? In this session, we can show you like 5, 10, whatever different ways how to avoid the problem, and some additional details like what are we going to use for this? What kind of tools? What kind of language? Whatever. So just Scotch tape. We will see how our cats will start hating us in just a couple of days. So that was for me kind of this algorithm, and it did help me. So most of my sessions, they kind of have this structure. So what is the problem? How can I solve it? Not given a solution in my abstract, but just like given a couple of details, and all the additional details that are not really that important for the first look, just in the bottom of the abstract. So first steps as a speaker.
Yes, so now came the point, okay, we're actually going to do this. We have an abstract. And then comes the point from, okay, we now have the abstract, we have your session is in your head. Now we need to find a place for you to speak. So how do you find a place to speak? Like, how do you start speaking at NDC Porto or at other NDCs or one of the other conferences? So first of all, I would say, keep good track of the CFPs. There's many different options for this. The one I use a lot is on Twitter. You have a couple of the aggregators that basically just CCFP is one that comes to mind now, but there's multiple of them. So that's definitely a good option, but also in Sessionize. So, and for those that don't know Sessionize yet, if you want to be a speaker, definitely create a Sessionize profile, because most of the conferences, they use Sessionize, but also it has a very nice feature where you can actually say, okay, these are the areas I'm interested in. So for example, Azure Cosmos DB, Azure in general, like, so you
Cats
add
from
those tags,
tape.
and actually starts looking for conferences that, that relate to what you are looking for. Also contact your local user groups. User groups are always looking for speakers, and especially for new speakers. I used to be an organizer of a user group as well, and it's very hard to find new speakers. So if you want to start speaking, like a user group is perfect for this. It's often a smaller group. People don't have as high expectations as, for example, from NDC Porto, because you pay a lot of money to come here. The user group is free to go to. So you get a little bit like less pressure on yourself. And also, like I said, it's just really good way to get involved with your local community as well.
It's also different experience, different format of the session itself.
Yes. And finally, discuss with your network. So everyone knows someone that might know someone. So just put it out there. Hey, I want to start speaking. Do you know anyone that's looking for a speaker? Like a lot of the speakers I know come to me from like, hey, or the new speakers come to me like, hey, I want to start speaking, and I just make introductions. So just look in your network and just reach out to there.
Yeah, setting up the slide deck. For me, it was quite hard. Like if you have to speak for 40 minutes or like 1 hour, and especially when I was studying, it was a virtual format. You stare in the camera, and it was really hard to just remember that you're talking, that you have a session, and not to get frustrated, forget about it, and just stand up and just go away. Like, so for me, it was really, really important to, when I'm setting up my slide deck, to make it somehow also interesting for me, so I remember that I actually given the session. So it has to be an interactive process. Like, I have to somehow either make some jokes, maybe some funny stories, maybe some memes, whatever. It has to guide my, the story has to guide through my session. So step by step, somehow that I remember, okay, I'm still going, and like basically just floating through the session. I have to give a bit of my own personality, of course, because if it's gonna be the same absolutely slide deck as someone else's, like you cannot say a difference. It's going to be boring. It's going to be boring for me. It's going to be boring for everyone else. Here's a link, how to avoid this by PowerPoint. I remember that Eldert gave me an advice to check it out. It's like 10 minutes or 15 minutes video, but just some tips and hints how to make it, first of all, more visible for people when they like, how to set up a font size, what colors better to use, and so on. This was also very, very helpful for me to make it also more comfortable for me to follow my own presentation when I'm speaking. And of course, more memes. Yeah, always memes. We don't have really much memes here, but this is just because we really informative presentation. So, so preparing the first session, for me, it was again talking to myself. Like, I think my neighbors saw that I have a problem or something, but I was talking to myself all the time while I was cooking in breakfast, and I was trying to, in my head, go through a session and I was trying to make it natural. I was trying to find the natural way for myself how to present the content I have. Practice multiple times. If you can manage to stand in front of the mirror and talk to yourself, that would be wonderful. This is extremely hard. I didn't manage. I was just laughing like, no, this is not for me. But I know that this is also advice from people that are speaking on the stage for many, many years. Try to talk to yourself in the mirror. Try to record yourself and try to watch it. Make yourself watch it. This is gonna be horrible. Yeah, I still didn't manage. Like maybe one time I managed. It was like a really short video, but I'm not there yet. Use an audience while practicing. Eldert was many times my audience. Eldert and Angelique. Sometimes people on the call when they were drunk enough to listen to me. So you have to talk to people as well. So people sometimes can give you a couple of hints. They can say, yeah, this is good. That was not really good. It's hard to follow. Or slow down and breathe and take some water. It's also helpful. Really helpful advices. rephrase. This is actually with Coach in PowerPoint, and that you have to explain this because for me it was absolutely a new thing.
So if you go to PowerPoint and you go to the presentation tab, you actually have a rehearse with Coach. And what this will do is you just do your session, so you start speaking, and it records it and actually analyzes everything that you're saying. So it picks up if you use stop words, or if you use like or something like that. It looks at your intonation, it looks at how fast are you speaking, and in the end it actually gives you a nice report saying, okay, you can improve this, you did this well, and it is a really nice way, especially if you don't want to rehearse with someone else yet. It's a really nice way to still get that feedback, like, okay, how am I actually doing? Where do I need to pay attention to?
And get
just in PowerPoint, so anyone can use it. Just open a PowerPoint on the slide deck, the slides section. It just says rehearse for Coach, and just try it out, I would say.
Yeah. And the last one, another video. Of course, I was doing a lot of research, and I was trying to, I was looking for tips and tricks. 110 techniques of communication and public speaking. It's not necessary, it's not mandatory, it's not that without this you cannot do public speaking, but for me, again, it was helpful to just understand how to stand on a stage, not to try to like hide yourself behind the stand and whatever. Also just how to communicate with people. In my case, it was not that necessary because I was communicating through camera and screen, but it was still also helpful to know that, okay, these things also exist, and you have to think about it later on. Of course, first time speaking, there's a lot of small details, like, okay, a glass of water or something else can help you to breathe in, breathe out, make a short break, and just think about what you're going to say next, for example. You can write down some important, complicated things. It's also fine. For me, in online format, again, it was sometimes frustrating. Like this slide, for example, really I cannot see everyone, so it might make me frustrated as well. But it's totally fine. Like here I can have some like notes, comments. It's totally the same situation as when it's a virtual format. You can also write some things down, put it in front of yourself, and it's fine to stop and just read, because sometimes it's not that you don't know. You can just forget. You can just, I don't know, get distracted. Talking slowly, take breaks, few seconds when needed. It's also helpful. Like if I'm very passionate about something, sometimes I speed up, and I think it's for everyone it's the same problem. So it's fine, and it's fine when someone can remind you as well, like calm down. This is also helpful. Just keep it. I'm trying to keep telling it to myself in my head, like slow down. People have to actually understand you. And yeah, of course, that people can see us. Try to smile. Try to show that you're not afraid of people. This is also has to be. And changing intonation, of course, when it's monotonic, like you're just talking, and like the whole audience is like going to sleep, or you going to sleep. It's also not very informative, not very interesting. So changing intonation is also helpful. And yeah. Relaxing. That was also something that everyone kept reminding me, relax, you're going to be great. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you're going to be great. So
this was Olena's first speaking gig, and by the way, which she did amazing. So, but yeah, like as you see, there was a whole process to actually get to that step. But then you have done your first speaking gig. And then it's like, okay, now I want to go, like, she really enjoyed it, or at least so she said. I hope it's still true. But she really enjoyed it, and she was like, okay, I want to go further with this. Like, what are the next steps if I want to continue on this path? So how do you keep that momentum of going forward? So first of all, make sure that you submit to multiple events. Of course, don't go overboard and submit to every event that you come across. Also look at like what is interesting. Also, of course, think about timelines and stuff like that, because you don't want to have like 5 conferences in 1 week.
Why not?
Who would do that, right?
You would do it.
But yeah, so submit to multiple events. And of course, like I said, look at what is in your area, what makes sense to submit to. And like I said, this can be conferences, it can be meetups, it can be many different things. So look at, okay, this is what I want to talk. Also create multiple sessions. As an organizer, nothing is as frustrating as having someone that just submits one session, because then either you have to pick that one session if you want to have the speaker, because sometimes you just want speaker because you want to give them a chance, or you know they're very interesting. but that session might overlap with other people's sessions that you then have to start choosing. So try to always have multiple sessions so the organizers have some different options to pick out of. Because maybe for some conferences they don't want Cosmos DB, but maybe they want Bicep, for example. So also create another session, and like I said, just have different sessions, all a bit different content. Doesn't mean you have to have like all different content. Like I said, if you do a session about Bicep, you can still use Bicep with Cosmos DB, for example. You just have a bit of a different take on it, and you look at some other stuff, but you still are in your own very own interest area there. And of course, keep interacting with the community. The community is very open, the community is very inviting, but you also have to make the effort yourself. And that's also important, like make sure that you do keep interacting with the community. One thing is just to make sure your name is out there, like people will recognize you, but also just because the community is really nice and really great and just very open and respectful to each other. So it's just a very nice place to be in.
Yeah, it's a very nice place to be in. Okay, so managing the schedule, this was important part. Eldert did how many 100 events?
I did 100 events in 1 year.
Yeah, it was bad example to follow. It was really bad example to follow. I was like, oh, it looks so entertaining. It looks so many things to do. No, it was really bad. So managing the schedule, this is really important thing, because this will just lead to burnout. Like you will be exhausted, you will be tired, you will not be able to do a job, you will not be able to do a session properly. Your whole life will become a nightmare if you're gonna try to do it like that. Yeah, so blog sessions in the calendar, this for me was also quite, organizing myself is not my thing. Like I just don't do this. This is not for me. Eldert, the same, that's how he managed, of course, but he was always keep telling me, have one place where you can have all the information. Is it your personal appointment? Is it your session? Is it your conferences? Doesn't matter. One place where you can see the whole overview of what is happening in your life. This will help you. So also, you have to have enough time in between the sessions. You never know. Yeah, you never know. Maybe if this is the same session, okay, fine. Maybe you will manage, you'll be fine, because this is one thing you kind of do a rehearsal before a rehearsal and again. But if it's different sessions, you have to prepare, you have to check your demo, you have to make sure that you are have enough energy for this. You also have your own life, you also have to work. So this is things you have to remember. And it's fine if it's virtual events, but imagine you have to travel 2-3 times per week, for example, in different city. This is going to be exhausting. And yeah, conference times also has to be taken into account. Sometimes, for example, NDC, it's a 5 days event. So 3 days of a conference, 2 days of workshop. You want to be here, right? Imagine that you have also some 1 or 2 online gigs and you want to be here, but then you run in your room and you try to have a session. It's not going to work. It's, again, just going to make you tired and exhausting. Yeah, keeping things fresh and interesting. So,
yeah, so
I don't know how to do
this. Of course, like I said, I did 100 sessions in 1 year. Of course, you're going to reuse your content. I mean, I'm not going to create 100 unique sessions. So you're going to reuse your content. And that's fine. Reusing content is fine. You speak at different conferences, different people will show up. Maybe someone has already seen it, but then they can, most of the conferences have multiple tracks, so they can go to another session. But there will always be a lot of people that have not seen your session before. So that's fine if you reuse content. Just make sure you keep updating it. I talk about Azure, and as we all know, Azure evolves quite fast. So you have to make sure that you still have the latest content in there, like the latest releases, all the new features, and also just make sure that you also actually know how does this work, why do you use it. So keep updating that content so it's always fresh. So even if someone sees the same session again, they should not feel like, hey, I'm just watching the same old session again. They should actually see hey, this is new, this changed, oh, this I didn't know yet. So keep updating that, because that's what you're here to inform people. Yeah, like I said, include new features, include new experiences, because the features will be new, but also your experience with those features will be new. You might have had another project with that feature, or for example with Cosmos DB, you can get a new project with Cosmos DB, you learn some new things there. So also that part of the session keeps evolving. And also just keep thinking about new sessions. So keep thinking about, okay, I now did another project and here I will start working with Bicep or with API management or whatever. So, and at that point you might think like, hey, okay, I already have this session about Cosmos DB, but maybe this will also be an interesting session, because at that point you start expanding your experience and also your portfolio. So once again, for organizers, they like to have multiple options, and also just making sure that you do keep creating new content, because if you just do the same session for 5 years, at some point people will be like, okay, I've seen this before, let's just go to someone else. So that's also important, like just keep creating new content. And it doesn't mean that you have to create a new session every week or anything like that, but just find a good pace for yourself where you're like, okay, I now did something new, let's create a new session about this. And then getting started yourself. Yeah, so for everyone that's here, like we already gave quite a few tips and tricks, but if you want to get started yourself, what should you do? And this is how you can start on your own journey. So first of all, decide on your own path. We discussed here today, like we already gave some different options, but we mostly focused on speaking because that's what Olena really likes to do. But of course, that doesn't mean that this is what you want to do. You might say, well, instead of speaking, I want to start blogging, or I want to start writing a book or something like that. So that's really important that you choose your own path. Like we give tips, we give tricks, we give our experiences, but you still have to do this and you have to enjoy this. Connect to your local community, especially if you want to start speaking, really connect with the local community, because there will be a lot of people, like I said, a lot of user groups are looking for speakers, there's a lot of meetups out there. So start connecting to your local community and just start knowing people as well. So they know like, hey, if I have a question about API management, or if I have a question about Cosmos DB, I'm going to Olena. So they know like, oh, this person knows a lot about this. And then also you will start getting invited and stuff like that. So it also helps you once again to create new opportunities. And of course, start building your own content. And this is even if you're just thinking about, hey, I might want to start doing this, already start creating your own content. And does mean like create a complete slide deck and everything like that. But just start saving snippets. Put it in OneNote or whatever, but just start saving snippets like, hey, if I ever want to start speaking or start blogging or something like that, I already have these snippets that I can then build my story around. So that's also very important. And like I said, it has to be your own content. Don't just copy someone else's slide deck and then start explaining their story, because it will be their story and not your story. So you can never be fully passionate about that.
Someone's story. So about mentorship. First of all, yeah, our session was about mentorship, but I want to remind that it's not necessary. It doesn't have to be. Like you can start easily to be involved in the community, to be a public speaker, blogger, writer, video content creator, whatever, without mentor on your own, perfectly fine. For us, it was also kind of like experiment. We became friends. We talked quite a lot every day. Yeah. And it was just also for us kind of an experiment. Let's try to do a mentorship. Let's try to make it official. Let's try to see what is going to happen. Maybe we will be able to help someone. Maybe we will be able to I don't know, give some tips, hints, maybe for someone else. Maybe there is going to be something out of it. So for us, it was kind of another Geeker project we shared. So, but if you want to find a mentor, if you want to do kind of also this mentorship, go in this mentorship path, find someone you align with, find someone you feel really comfortable, you feel great spending time, even if it's not about mentorship, if it's not about content and community thing, whatever, just find a friend that you can also learn from, but also remember that your mentor also will learn from you as well. So it's also like both sides. There cannot be any hierarchy. There cannot be like a strict, like you have to do like this. There cannot be any orders. It has to be a work together. Many times I was listening to Eldert's session. I was helping him, telling him, you're great, you're amazing, there's nothing to change. I'm joking. He also wanted to hear feedback from me, especially that that we spent quite a lot of time together. I know what kind of content he has. I know what kind of sessions he's doing, so I can give it advice, or I can say, okay, this looks absolutely not like the thing you do. Try to change it. Try to maybe rephrase it, or whatever. The same was from his side to me. He was looking at my sessions. He was very often not changing, correcting, or whatever, but just helping me to understand if it's something which is fitting even in my world. So guidance, and the rest is on you. You can listen. You can hear the advice. You can hear it out. You can give an advice, but you have to decide what to do. As a mentor and mentee, you decide in the end if you're going to do the session, if you're going to participate in an event. It's also, you don't have to accept every invitation. You don't have to go for every event or every conference. You decide if it makes sense for you or not. Learning to say no, first of all, this is a very, very important. And enjoy the journey. If it's not enjoyable, my advice to stop, think about it, and try to change something, because this is going to be just worse. If you have to push yourself every time to do this, I need to wake up, I need to do the session, it's going to be just worse, worse, worse. Enjoy the session, enjoy the journey, enjoy the rest of the day in general, and we come in slowly to the end of our session. Very important to remember that everyone has to start somewhere, and speakers like Eldert, David, Dylan, or whoever else, they had a start somewhere. They had to start. Each of them always advise, repeat, 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 repeat until it's become better. So no need to be afraid to fail, need to be afraid not to enjoy what you're doing, and the rest will come. So thanks a lot. Once again, our contacts, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Please feel free to reach out to us if you would like to have any help or whatever, or just if you have any comments, questions regarding the session. And thanks a lot for the attention.
Yes, and thank you once again for an amazing session. So I really enjoyed it again, as always. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. Yeah, like Olena said, reach out to us if you want to know anything. Also, we are thinking about doing some more content around this, so we don't have any specifics there, but also keep an eye out definitely on our Twitter, because we'll be announcing some stuff there, where we want to do some more interactive sessions maybe on Twitter or something like that. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, we will see. Thanks a lot.